An indoctrination test.
Hello, I'm John McCamick, always asking the question, what is truth? Today we're going to do an indoctrination test. Now, I did a video on duped by the Michelson-Morley experiment to show you what I call conditioning for a result. If people get you to look and think about one way of looking at data, give you the data, and the data says what they say. But there's another way of viewing that. So today I'm going to do an indoctrination test. And the subject matter that I'll be using is CO2.
What percent of the atmosphere is CO2? What percent of the atmosphere is CO2? 0.04% is a trace gas. Number 2, what percent is natural phenomena versus human intervention? Natural phenomena versus human intervention. Well, I believe it's at least 50% natural phenomena. Now, you'll read all kinds of information, and those numbers are all over the place. But for me, in my opinion, natural phenomena is at least 50%. Number 3, do cars put out CO2? Do cars put out CO2? Yes, that's not a trick question. We all know that cars put out CO2. Number 4, is CO2 bad for trees? Is CO2 bad for trees? No. Think of CO2 as plant food. If you have less CO2, you have less healthy trees. So we need healthy trees in order for them to go through the thing called photosynthesis to make oxygen, which we need to breathe. So is CO2 bad for trees? No, it's plant food and it's oxygen. Number 5, do hurricanes affect CO2 levels and how? Hurricanes affect CO2 levels and how? They destroy trees, and the broken trees that are laying on the ground cause decay, which causes CO2. So there's a double whammy there. Number 6, do volcanoes contribute to CO2 levels? Volcanoes contribute to CO2 levels. Yes, they also destroy trees, but they also directly put in CO2 into the atmosphere. Now you say, well, John, that's not very many volcanoes on the earth. And so let's give an idea of how many are on the earth. Just to give you an example, 6A, how many volcanoes are under Antarctica? How many volcanoes are under Antarctica? There are 137 volcanoes under Antarctica. That's a lot. Let's go to number 7. What percent did CO2 increase from the beginning of the Industrial Revolution till now? CO2 increase from the beginning of the Industrial Revolution till now. 50%. 50%. That's going to be crucial because people focus on that, the 50% increase. That's a lot. Let's continue on. Number 8. How much did the human population grow since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution till now? Population growth from the Industrial Revolution till now. The population in 1850 was 1.2 billion people. In 2024, it was over 8.1 billion. So from the beginning of the Industrial Revolution to the end of 2023, the population of the Earth grew 580.164%. So yes, CO2 levels did increase 50%, and they always want to focus on that. But what about the human population growing 580%? We'll talk more about that in a minute. So does increase in population affect CO2 levels? Does population increase affect CO2 levels? Yes, we breathe out CO2 continuously. Okay, now let us put some of these numbers together. 0.04% is the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere, and humans have half of that because the other half is natural phenomena. So we divide that by 2, we end up with 0.02%. So if humans are responsible for 0.02% of CO2 in the atmosphere, how much of that is from the United States? And as you can see, 16%. So we multiply that 0.02 by 16% to get the U.S. portion of carbon dioxide from fossil fuels, which comes out to 0.0032. That's 32 thousandth of 1%. In my opinion, the United States could get rid of all our fossil fuel burning equipment and it would have no effect on the climate. More humans and less trees mean that we need more oxygen, therefore we need more CO2. Now more humans put out more CO2 to offset some of the extra humans. I call this the balanced universe. The problem comes from deforestation. Less trees, less oxygen. However, more CO2 will cause the trees that are left to flourish and make up for the loss of trees and therefore more oxygen. So, it is a noble effort to be going towards alternative means of making energy. But I do not want to be lied to. You can use the oil responsibly to make up for the difference of needing CO2, which makes more oxygen for the extra people.
I'd like to talk about something called a wordsmith. All media use wordsmiths. However, the expert wordsmiths are called fact checkers. When you see fact checkers, be aware that they are masters at manipulating words and numbers to fit their particular bias. They do not necessarily lie. However, they deceive by not giving us the whole story. As Bongino would say, they give us a story, not the story. Um, so just be careful because the data is all over the place on this. For instance, some places will say one volcano puts out more CO2 than all human activity in a year. But there's others that'll say no, they only put out 100 million tons, while the population put out 29 billion tons. That's a big difference. So just be careful. There are 1,900 volcanoes in the world, just so you know, approximately. Some people say 1,600, but there's a lot of volcanoes, and not all of them are active. But for them to estimate how much CO2 all of those are putting out, I don't think so. It's just an estimate. Keep thinking about that. Um, a while back when a chunk of ice fell off Antarctica, I thought, well, everybody started saying global warming, global warming. I thought, well, wait a minute, it's not happening all the way around. It's just happening in that one spot. What else could be causing that? And that's when I started thinking about volcanoes and how many volcanoes are under Antarctica, and that's how I started thinking about volcanoes. So everybody wants to talk about global warming, human intervention, and no, well, a lot of this is natural phenomena. Let's just try to be fair. It's just there's another article I saw that said that CO2 levels have leveled off in the last decade. So how could that be if humans are increasing and trees are decreasing? It's just doesn't make much sense to me. So just be careful. Doing research, for instance, if you put in global warming hoax or climate change hoax, all you'll see at the very top is CNN and New York Times and ABC and all these guys, all the liberal people. Where is Fox News? I mean, I start at 7 pages and then sometimes I go down 15 pages just to find an article that from Fox News or some conservative outlet. So just be careful. Fox News is as big as CNN and MSNBC combined. Why aren't they at the top? When the internet first came out, I would put parentheses around whatever I wanted to see. For instance, climate change hoax. I put parentheses around that, and that would get me to that. But that doesn't even work today. These algorithms are for the search engines, for the websites, for the advertisers. They are not for the consumer. Be aware. Think about that. So just trying to scratch that gray matter. Come along and think with me. Thank you.
Well, some of these people will try to say, okay, so what? CO2 is only 0.04% of the atmosphere, but it goes up and stays up for a long time, where these other ones go up and they come right back down. But so it makes you think that maybe there's more CO2 than because it stays up there and the others fall down. But I try to think about it as a conveyor belt. Okay, you've got CO2 going up real slow, coming down real slow, but it's always 0.04%. Okay, now methane goes up faster and comes down faster, but there's more of it, but it stays consistent at the top. So, and then water vapor, they always talk about water vapor. Well, water vapor goes up, but it comes down in snow and rain. It comes down real fast. Well, it's going up real fast too to replace that. So that's bogus. Don't get caught up in that. Just remember that CO2 is pretty much always 0.04%, regardless of how fast or slow everything else goes up and down. Just keep that in the back of your mind. Where does the oil come from? Now, as a child, I was told that oils come from dinosaurs. I thought, man, that's a lot of dinosaurs. Then I got to thinking, no, well, the sun's energy, and the plants store that energy. So think of plants like little batteries. So we as animals go over and eat that plant, and we get energy. So if oil comes from dinosaurs, to me, in my opinion, it'd be a very low grade of oil. The highest grade of oil is wherever the plants are, for instance, the Fertile Crescent. I have stated that oil comes from plants, so it is a renewable energy. Oil is constantly being made. If we do not use the oil, eventually we will have a problem with too much oil. Let's talk about urgency. I know John Kerry has all these college students up in arms and saying, the Earth's going to end in 12 years. Well, I don't think so. It's true that we're doing some small things right now. They may have long-term ramifications. However, let me explain by a rocket. Let's suppose a rocket's off by 1 foot. By the time it gets to Mars, it may be off 1,000,000 miles. But we have means of making course corrections like the Attitude rockets. So we can get it down maybe to 1/2 of 1,000,000 miles and continue on. And eventually the actual route is the same as the intended route because of those course corrections. Well, we humans are the same. We have issues maybe now with fossil fuels, but I don't think we should stop using fossil fuels. We just need to improve them as we go along. We can make course corrections in order to make it fine. We have made it tremendous from the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, the beginning of cars, till now. We have made significant improvements, and I think those improvements will continue. I don't think we need to get rid of fossil fuel burning. Let's start off by talking about cycles. Now, anything above the red line is warm, anything below the red line is cool. We start with the elliptical orbits, which is the 100,000 year ice ages, the tilt at 41,000, which is the interglacial. We have the 26,000 gyrates, and then we have the smaller ones, the sunspots at 11 years, and the La Nina and El Nino, 2 to 7 years. We have warming periods that overlap, and that means these are the places where it's enhanced warming, and we have overlapping in the cool areas, which is also the enhancing of the cool area. Now, the main point of this is that we humans have no control over whether the climate is going up hotter or down cooler. And it's not perfect because of all these overlapping, but we must understand that we humans do not control global warming or global cooling. Putting this all together, look at the big picture. First of all, greenhouse gases. You got a little bitty CO2 over here. Then you got methane, you got water vapor. All right, that's kind of the way it goes. And then you got natural phenomena. You got CO2 created by humans. Then you got hurricanes and volcanoes and fire and ocean. And then the sun and the big sunspots. Sunspots, every 11 years there's a sunspot cycle. We have warm and cool. And there's nothing we humans can do about it. Think about that. We're saying that little bitty CO2 from the cars are causing global warming because you look up at the big sun up there. We're controlling that sun. We're controlling those sunspots. You see that big ocean out there? We're controlling the ocean. Give me a break. I mean, think, people. Think. So, in my opinion, it is the sun, the ocean, the hurricanes, volcanoes, and fires that affect the climate more than little bitty CO2. Now, CO2 does have an effect, but don't get me wrong, and we need to be responsible. But to make it the culprit, no, it doesn't go the other way. So, in my opinion, it's the sun and sunspots and ocean, and they're huge, a lot bigger than we humans. And we have some responsibility, but we do not control it. So I know some of you are saying, well, John, why do you put so much emphasis on natural phenomena? Is there any evidence? Well, I believe there is. So first of all, I went across and talked to you about oil primarily comes from plants. Okay, so if plants are the main source of oil, then the place where the plants are is where the oil is. So now that made me think, well, where is the most oil here in the United States? Where is it? And I found out it's in Alaska, in particular, Prudhoe Bay. Now I've shown you some pictures here, and the temperature there never gets much above freezing. And so, wait a minute, with all this ice and stuff, and there's no trees, where did all that oil come from? It's obvious that at one time Alaska was warm. It might have had some dinosaurs on it, but it had a lot of vegetation and trees in particular. So in order to make all that oil that is under Prudhoe Bay. So in other words, that global warming did not happen by human intervention. That happened supposedly, we'll talk more about the glacier ice ages being 40 to 100,000 years. So we weren't here when that last warming period was, so you can't blame that on us. So Prudhoe Bay has oil that came from plants that at one time it was a warm area that was not created by human intervention. The following is definite proof that natural phenomena has been underestimated for political and economic gain. Now, I've always was told that ice ages were 40,000 years apart because of the wobble and the tilt and whatever of the Earth. But however, I've seen some that say 100,000. But let's just use 40,000, the lesser of the two. So 40,000 years between ice ages. That means there are 20,000 years increasing heat and 20,000 years of cooling. I'm a numbers guy, so this comes easy to me, but I try to make it as simple as I can so that you can understand it. Okay, using the lesser time between ice ages, 40,000 years, and knowing that the last ice age ended about 11,700 years ago, we have the following. 20,000 years of global warming minus 11,700 that's already happened. That means we have another 8,300 years to go. In other words, overall global warming will continue for another 8,300 years. And of course, that extra 8,300 years of global warming is primarily natural phenomena. Now, do we as humans interfere with that being plus or minus? I don't know, of course, but I do believe that we can make course corrections and that it will stay close to that number of 8,300 years. Conditioning for result, Wordsmith. The CO2 increased during the Industrial Revolution. That's what they know. The result that they came up with is increase in CO2 increases global warming versus CO2 increased with increase of human breathing out CO2, deforestation filters less CO2, natural phenomena, the sun, sunspots, hurricanes, fires, methane, water vapor, etc. The result, some human activity, breathing, and natural phenomena, sun, sunspots, human, hurricanes, fires, methane, water vapor, etc., controls global warming, which increases CO2 levels. So here it is in a nutshell. They say that increase in CO2 increases global warming. But I say some human activity, breathing, and natural phenomena together increases global warming, which increases CO2 levels. I believe if I say it enough different ways that one of them will stick to you. For instance, now we're saying cars and breathing out and a little deforestation by humans controls the environment. It controls all these huge cycles, the volcanoes, the tornadoes, the hurricanes, the fires, the ocean, the sun. Give me a break. Think about all this. Do we control these things? I think not. Hopefully you people will wake up and see this. We are being lied to. So look at the correct way of looking at all this. Yes, these huge cycles, volcanoes, all this natural phenomena, we do not control. This all controls the CO2 that's in the atmosphere because of the heat. Remember, heat increases CO2. Natural phenomena increases the heat in the climate, primarily due to the sun, but all these other aspects also. But it heats the atmosphere, which increases CO2, not the other way around. This is an article concerning Hurricane Katrina. After Hurricane Katrina finished its destruction of the Gulf Coast region in 2005, nearly 5 million acres, or 320 million trees, through Mississippi, Alabama, and Louisiana had been wiped out. According to the study by Berkeley Lab, the loss of so many trees was not only devastating to the ecosystem within the forest, but also to the Earth's atmosphere. I just wanted to show you the destruction power of hurricanes, and on the other side to Earth, they're called typhoons. But just to give you an idea that 320 million trees no longer are taking CO2 out of the atmosphere, and they're laying on the ground, rotting, and creating CO2. So it's a double whammy, a big double whammy. There are many articles that I have read that try to imply that CO2 from natural phenomena has been consistent over years, even perhaps millions of years. However, I dispute this. Natural phenomena, as you can see from this hurricane, caused incredible ups and downs in the level of CO2 through the years. I also showed you the cycles, sunspots, El Nino, La Nina, etc., which causes the atmosphere to either be hot or cold. There are times when the cycles cause the climate to be hotter. Remember, heat increases CO2. So, when they say CO2 levels increase over the period of the Industrial Revolution till now, they imply that most of that is human intervention because they have tried to convince us that the natural phenomena are steady and has little or no influence over the rise of CO2. To emphasize, I did not include all natural phenomena that affects CO2 levels. For example, large planets like Jupiter and Saturn, the moon, the oceans, etc. All of these contribute to climate cycles. There are so many cycles that it would be difficult to say just how much influence they have over any period of time. If it was just one cycle, that would be easy to predict its effect on the climate and CO2 levels. However, there are a lot of cycles that make it difficult to determine how they affect the climate at any given time, especially when they overlap. The media people who benefit politically and economically will show this chart because they can convince people that humans are the problem. I, on the other hand, believe that natural phenomena dwarfs human activity and therefore controls the climate, not just CO2. So the world at 0.04, humans at 0.02, and the United States at 0.0032. As I said, there are a lot of cycles. I only showed 5. I also said that at times the cycles overlap, causing an enhanced effect. Here is a section of 3 cycles that overlap on the up cycle, which enhances the heat. Heat causes a rise in CO2, therefore, during this period of time, CO2 rises more significantly than other times. For example, during the time of the Industrial Revolution. Do not say that climate change and global warming are a hoax. They are happening. However, in my opinion, it is primarily natural phenomena, not human intervention. I had the opportunity to help plant the church in Celebration, Florida with Patrick Risley. He asked me to set up a thing called Stephen Ministry, which was like deacons. The main person that helped me was Jan Houck. Now, her son, Ryan Houck, put out a great video called If I Wanted America to Fail. If you want to hear a great video on pretty much everything I just talked about, please watch this video. It keeps everything in perspective of what is really happening today. Thank you.
Well, that's the end of the test. How'd you do? I know there's some things you haven't even thought about. Um, Now, I say it again that it's your prerogative whether to accept or reject what I have to say. All I ask you to do is to take it into consideration because I believe through civil discourse, we can stimulate critical thinking and get us all closer to what is truth. I am a believer in a creator, and I believe that we were created to have dominion over the earth, which means we have the right to use the resources that are available. But at the same time, we're make caretakers of the garden, and there needs to be a balance between those two. We don't need to be lied to. Just give us the data and let us make a decision, an informed decision. Well, this is John McCamick. I hope that you learned something today, and um, till next time, God bless.
Thank you for watching my video. Please share, like, and follow either on Rumble, YouTube, or my website. I appreciate it. Thank you. God bless.